The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Earth vessel Horizon. Commander Jack Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the unfamiliar patterns of light. The ship had traveled farther than any human vessel. Before it, they were making history with every passing moment. "Commander, we're picking up unusual energy readings," said Lieutenant Kate Boyd from her station. Her voice was calm, but Miller could hear the tension underneath. "Source?" Miller asked, walking over to her console. "Unknown, sir. Nothing like we've seen before. Definitely not natural." Miller nodded. "Alert status yellow. I want all sensors at maximum." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for first contact scenarios, but no one truly believed it would happen on their mission. The Horizon was primarily a scientific vessel, sent to catalog potentially habitable worlds beyond the solar system. "Sir, visual contact," called out Navigation Officer Peter Clark, putting it on the main screen. The image that appeared made the entire bridge fall silent. Two vessels unlike anything humans had ever built were engaged in what could only be described as combat. One ship gleamed with smooth curved surfaces that reflected the distant starlight. The other was darker, angular, with what looked like exposed weapon systems covering its hull. "Are we seeing this correctly?" Miller asked softly. "Confirmed, sir," said Communications Officer Lisa West. "Two vessels of unknown origin. The larger one appears to be pursuing the smaller. We're detecting weapons fire." Miller didn't hesitate. "Full stop. Maintain distance. Let's not get involved in someone else's fight." The order had barely left his mouth when the smaller vessel changed course, heading directly toward them. "They've spotted us," Boyd said. "The smaller ship is on an intercept course." "Shields up," Miller ordered. "Weapons on standby, but do not engage unless I give the order." The approaching vessel slowed as it neared the horizon. Now they could see the damage it had sustained. Parts of its hull were breached and what looked like escape pods had been jettisoned. "We're receiving a transmission," West announced, surprise evident in her voice. I think it's a distress signal. The computer is attempting to translate." "Put it through," Miller said. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything they had heard before, musical and strained with clicks and tones human vocal cords couldn't produce. But the universal language of desperation needed no translation. The ship's AI worked quickly. Words began to appear on the screen as the translation program found patterns in the alien language. Help. Diplomatic vessel. Under attack. Civilians aboard. Miller looked back at the view screen. The larger ship was closing in fast. "Sir, the pursuing vessel has locked weapons on both the smaller ship and us," Boyd reported. Miller had a decision to make. The Horizon wasn't built for combat. Their orders were clear: observe, document, and avoid interference with any potential alien civilizations they might encounter. But there were people on that ship, beings, whatever they called themselves, asking for help. "How long until our reinforcements could arrive?" Miller asked. "The nearest Earth vessel is 3 weeks away at maximum speed," West replied. Miller nodded. No help was coming. "Target the pursuing vessel's weapon systems only," he ordered. "Fire," when ready. The bridge fell silent again, but this time with tension. "Sir, that's a direct violation of our non-interference protocols," said Executive Officer Ryan Jones. "Noted," Miller replied. "But I'm not going to float here and watch a massacre. Fire!" The Horizon's defense systems were limited but precise. The shots hit the pursuing vessel's main weapon ports. The alien ship turned its attention fully to the Horizon now, seemingly surprised by the interference. "Evasive maneuvers," Miller ordered. "Pattern Delta, and open a channel to the diplomatic vessel." The Horizon moved with surprising agility for its size, avoiding the worst of the enemy fire. The ship shuddered as some hits connected. "Channel open," West confirmed. "This is Commander Jack Miller of the Earth vessel Horizon. We're going to try to help you. Can your ship still move?" After a moment, a reply came through the translator. "Yes, limited power." "Thank you. Follow our lead. We're going to create a distraction. When I give the signal, make for these coordinates." Miller had the computer send the location of a nearby asteroid field where they might lose their pursuer. The plan was risky. The Horizon wasn't built for combat maneuvers, but Miller had insisted that all his crew train for worst-case scenarios. Now that training would be tested. All power to forward shields, Miller ordered. We're going to pass directly between them. The crew looked nervous but determined as they carried out his orders. The Horizon accelerated, heading straight toward the fight. "Sir, the enemy vessel is firing," Boyd shouted. "Hold course," Miller said calmly. The Horizon shuddered violently as it took multiple hits. Warning lights flashed across control panels. "Now," Miller ordered as they passed between the two alien ships. "Fire all aft weapons." The Horizon's rear weapons fired at the pursuing vessel as they passed, causing it to veer off course. The diplomatic ship took advantage of the moment, changing direction toward the coordinates Miller had sent. "Follow them in," Miller ordered, "and pray they know their way through that asteroid field better than we do." The next 20 minutes were the most intense of their mission. The Horizon weaved through the asteroid field, taking hits both from the pursuing vessel and from space debris they couldn't avoid. The diplomatic vessel moved with greater ease, clearly more familiar with such maneuvers. "We've lost them," Boyd finally announced, relief evident in her voice. "The enemy vessel has broken off pursuit." Miller allowed himself to breathe. "Damage report?" "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, contained by emergency force fields. Minor injuries reported, no casualties. We've lost 30% of our shield capacity and 2 of our 6 engines are offline," Jones reported. "Could have been worse," Miller said. "Where's the diplomatic vessel?" "Holding position just ahead, sir. They're hailing us." On the view screen appeared a being unlike anything they had seen before. Tall and slender, with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors as it moved. Its eyes were large, with multiple pupils that adjusted independently. "We are the Talarian Diplomatic Corps," the translator conveyed. "I am Ambassador Zivnara. You have saved our lives and potentially prevented an interstellar incident. We are deeply grateful." Miller nodded respectfully. "We're glad we could help those who attacked you." "Varaxians," the ambassador supplied. "A species previously unknown to the Galactic Confederation until recently. They have been attacking our outposts without provocation or communication for the past 6 cycles." "Galactic Confederation?" Miller asked, exchanging glances with his officers. "Yes," Zivnara replied. "A union of 27 spacefaring species. And you are humans, correct? We have observed your world from afar but had not planned first contact for another decade, when your technology had further matured." Miller couldn't help but smile. "Sometimes plans change. It seems we have a lot to talk about, Ambassador." "Indeed," Zivnara agreed. "Perhaps starting with repairs to your vessel, our engineers can assist, and then there is much we must discuss about the Varaxians. The Confederation is at war, Commander Miller, and your species has just joined it by your actions today." Miller looked around at his crew, at the damaged ship that had been meant for peaceful exploration, and at the strange new ally on the screen. In a single day, everything had changed for humanity. "Well," he said simply, "I guess we'd better make the most of it." 6 months had passed since humanity's unexpected entry into galactic affairs. The large meeting room aboard the Confederation command ship, Eternal Vigilance, buzzed with tension. At one end of the long table sat Admiral Patricia Donovan, her gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was crisp, but dark circles under her eyes showed the strain of recent weeks. Across from her, High Commander Kelthax of the Confederation fleet towered over the other aliens. His scaled skin shimmered with a blue-green light when he moved. 4 arms were crossed over his broad chest in what humans had learned was a sign of disapproval. "Your plan lacks proper formation and respect for established doctrine," Kelthax said. His translator rendered his clicks and rumbles into flat English. "The Ninth Fleet must maintain position at the Praxis Junction. It is the proper defensive stance." Donovan pushed a hand through her hair. "With all due respect, High Commander, fighting this war according to 10,000-year-old tactical manuals is exactly why you're losing." The room fell silent. The other alien commanders shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke to Kelthax this way. Admiral Donovan, said a smaller alien with feathery appendages that quivered with agitation. Perhaps you do not understand. The praxis junction is strategically vital. All our models indicate. Your models are exactly what the Varaxians expect, Donovan interrupted. She stood up and walked to the large star map. They've studied your tactics for months. They know you'll defend Praxis because that's what your ancient battle plans tell you to do. But look here. She pointed to a seemingly empty sector. If we position our faster ships here instead, we can catch their supply lines completely unprotected. Kelthax's skin darkened. You suggest we abandon a critical defensive position to attack cargo ships? I suggest we stop fighting the war they expect us to fight, Donovan said. The Varaxians don't care about your rules of engagement. They care about winning. The argument continued for hours. In the end, Donovan left frustrated. The Confederation commanders agreed to consider her suggestions, which she knew meant they would politely ignore them. In another part of the massive Confederation vessel, Alan Martinez was causing an equal amount of disruption. The engineering bay was filled with equipment from a dozen different worlds. Martinez stood by a large holographic display, sleeves rolled up, pointing at a modified ship design. The problem isn't your engine efficiency, he explained to the gathered Confederation engineers. It's your entire approach to ship design. You're building perfect battleships when what you need are swarms of smaller craft. Chief Engineer Vrel Nar, an insectoid being with compound eyes that reflected the light in rainbow patterns, clicked his mandibles in disagreement. Our capital ships are the finest in the galaxy. Each is a perfect balance of offensive and defensive capabilities. And they're being picked apart by Varaxian hunter groups, Martinez countered. Look, what if we converted some of your passenger transports? They have the space. We could fit each one with 20 to 30 small fighter craft. Fighter craft? Vrelnar asked, the translator struggling with the concept. Small, 1 or 2 person vessels, fast, maneuverable, and armed just enough to do damage to specific targets. Martinez quickly sketched a design on his tablet. We've used similar tactics in our own conflicts. You propose to send individuals into battle in such tiny vessels? Another engineer asked, clearly horrified. The casualty rates would be lower than what you're experiencing now, Martinez interrupted. These fighters could protect your capital ships from the small Varaxian attack craft that have been causing so much damage. The engineers exchanged glances. The idea was so foreign to their way of thinking that they struggled to even evaluate it. It would take months to design and build such vessels, Vrel Nar finally said. Martinez smiled. Not if we modify existing shuttles. I could have a prototype ready in 2 weeks. The Confederation engineers reluctantly agreed to allow Martinez and his human team to proceed with what they called the Martinez conversion. They didn't expect much to come of it. 3 weeks later, Donovan stood on the bridge of the Confederation, vessel Swift Justice, watching as the first squadron of modified fighters prepared for their maiden combat mission. The Varaxians had been spotted approaching a mining colony in the Deneb system. The fighters are in position, Admiral, reported Commander Liam Foster. Pilots report ready status. Donovan nodded. Tell them to stick to the plan. Hit and run, only. Target their sensor arrays first, then weapons. The battle that followed stunned the Confederation observers. The small human-designed fighters darted between the larger Varaxian vessels, too quick to target effectively. They struck with precision, disabling key systems before retreating, only to swoop back in from another angle. This is unconventional, said Captain Ziv Nara, who had been rescued by the Horizon months earlier and now served as liaison between human and Confederation forces. This is how humans fight when we're outnumbered, Donovan explained. We find the weak spots and we exploit them. Your people have been trying to meet the Varaxians head-on, strength against strength. That only works when you're stronger. By the end of the engagement, 3 Varaxian vessels had been disabled without a single fighter lost. The mining colony was safe. Word of the victory spread quickly through Confederation channels. 2 days later, Donovan was summoned to meet with the Confederation High Council. She expected resistance. Instead, she found them eager to learn more about human battle tactics. "We have reviewed the combat footage," said Council Elder Mirasal, her translucent skin pulsing with soft light. "Your methods are disturbing but effective. We wish to implement more of these fighter squadrons immediately." Donovan smiled. "I'm glad to hear that. And I have other suggestions as well. Martinez in engineering has been working on modifying your sensor arrays to better track Varaxian movement patterns." "Yes, we have heard of the human engineer's unusual ideas," Mirasal said. "Initially, many found his approach chaotic and disrespectful of our traditions, but results cannot be ignored." After the meeting, Donovan met Martinez in the ship's common area. They sat at a table drinking the closest thing the Confederation had to coffee, a bitter blue liquid that left a slight tingle on the tongue. "They've approved full production of the fighters," Donovan said, "and they want to hear more of our unusual ideas." Martinez grinned. "About time. I've got 20 more modifications that could double their fleet's effectiveness." "Don't push. Too hard, too fast," Donovan cautioned. "These people have been doing things their way for thousands of years. Change is difficult." "They need to change faster, Pat," Martinez said, his expression growing serious. "The Varaxians are adapting to our tactics already. We need to stay ahead of them." Donovan nodded. "We will, one step at a time." She looked out the viewport at the stars. "It's strange, isn't it? We always wondered if we were alone in the universe, and now humanity is helping decide the outcome of a galactic war." "What's strange," Martinez replied, "is that with all their advanced technology and thousands of years of history, they needed us to show them how to think differently." He raised his cup. "To human ingenuity." Donovan clinked her cup against his. "To turning the tide." Dr. Laura Kennedy didn't look like someone who could change the course of a war. Her small frame was usually hunched over a screen or a sample, her curly brown hair often tied back messily as she worked. But for the past 3 months, she had been obsessed with understanding the Varaxians. The laboratory aboard the Confederation science vessel, Truth Seeker, was large and filled with equipment Kennedy was still learning to use. She sat surrounded by data screens showing Varaxian attack patterns from dozens of battles. "You've been at this for 18 hours straight," said Navy Lieutenant Richard Garcia as he entered with 2 steaming cups. "Even brilliant scientists need sleep." Kennedy smiled tiredly and accepted the drink. "Sleep can wait. I'm seeing something here, Rick. Something no one else has noticed." Garcia pulled up a chair. Unlike Kennedy, he looked every bit the military man. Tall, fit, with sharp eyes that missed little. His role as military liaison to the science team had unexpectedly turned into a partnership with Kennedy. "Show me," he said simply. Kennedy pulled up footage from 3 separate battles. "Watch the Varaxian formations. See how they move? It's not just tactical, there's something primal about it." Garcia studied the screen. The Varaxian ships moved in patterns that seemed oddly familiar, though he couldn't place why. "It reminds me of something," he said, "but I can't put my finger on it." "Wolves," Kennedy said. "Or lions. Or any pack predator from Earth. They're not just fighting us, Rick, they're hunting us." Garcia's expression changed as he saw it too. The way the Varaxian ships would cut off escape routes, how they would isolate a target from the main group, the patience they showed before striking. "They're treating our ships like prey," he said slowly. Kennedy nodded eagerly. "Exactly. The Confederation has been fighting them like they're an enemy army, but they're behaving like hunters, and that means they have predator instincts we can exploit," Garcia finished. For the next week, Kennedy and Garcia worked together, analyzing every piece of footage and data on Varaxian behavior. They brought in other human scientists and military strategists, forming a small team focused on this new approach. When they finally presented their findings to the Confederation Science Council, the reception was cold. "You claim to understand an alien species better than we do, after only months of contact?" asked Chief Scientist Kelvorian, his long fingers tapping impatiently on the table. "We have studied the Varaxians since they first appeared. They are Warriors, not animals. Kennedy stood her ground. With respect, that assumption may be why you haven't found an effective way to counter them. We're not saying they're just animals. We're saying they have biological imperatives that influence their tactical decisions. What Dr. Kennedy has identified, Garcia added, is that Varaxians follow specific hunting patterns that can be predicted and manipulated. The council members exchanged glances. Most seemed skeptical, but Ambassador Zivnara, who had joined the meeting out of interest, leaned forward. "What do you propose?" Zivnara asked. Kennedy brought up a new display. "A trap, but not a military one as you might design it. A trap that appeals to their hunting instincts." Her plan was bold. Instead of positioning fleets for maximum defensive coverage, she proposed creating an apparent vulnerability, a gap that would be irresistible to the Varaxian hunting pattern. "You want us to deliberately weaken our defenses?" one council member asked, clearly alarmed. "We want you to appear weak in one specific area," Garcia clarified, "while being very strong in ways the Varaxians won't expect until it's too late." After hours of debate, the council remained unconvinced. It was only after another devastating Confederation defeat at the Proxima Nebula that High Commander Kelthax finally agreed to try Kennedy's approach. The Dinara system was chosen for the test. It contained valuable mining operations but few civilian populations. The Confederation fleet positioned itself with an obvious gap in its defenses, leaving a clear path to the system's inner planets. Behind this gap, hidden in the sensor shadow of a large gas giant, waited a fleet of Martinez's converted fighters and several new vessels equipped with weapons designed specifically to target Varaxian sensor systems. Kennedy and Garcia watched from the command center of the lead vessel as the operation unfolded. Admiral Donovan stood nearby, her face tense. "Varaxian fleet detected," announced the sensor officer. "They're approaching the gap in our defenses just as predicted." Kennedy's heart raced. If she was wrong, if the Varaxians didn't take the bait, a vital system would be left exposed. "They're increasing speed," the officer continued. "All ships moving toward the gap." Garcia touched Kennedy's shoulder lightly. "They're hunting, just like you said." When the Varaxian fleet committed fully to the attack, moving through the gap with their guard down, Donovan gave the order. "All ships, execute Operation Mousehole." The hidden human-designed fighters launched, while automated defense platforms that had been powered down to avoid detection suddenly activated. The Varaxian fleet found itself caught in a devastating crossfire. For the first time, a Varaxian assault force was completely destroyed without a single Confederation casualty. The outer celebration afterward was subdued but genuine. Kennedy found herself the center of attention as Confederation scientists who had dismissed her now wanted to understand her methods. But she was already moving on to her next discovery. In her lab, she studied samples collected from destroyed Varaxian vessels. "What are you looking for now?" Garcia asked as he joined her. Kennedy pointed to a microscope display. "During the battle, I noticed something. When the first Varaxian ships were hit, the others reacted almost instantly, faster than any communication signals we detected." "What are you saying?" "I think they communicate in ways we haven't recognized. Look at these samples. These are chemical compounds found in the wreckage, but they're not from weapons or ship systems." Garcia peered at the display. "What are they?" "Pheromones," Kennedy said. "Or something similar. I think the Varaxians communicate distress through chemical signals. And if that's true, we could potentially disrupt their communication," Garcia finished, seeing the implications immediately. Kennedy nodded, her eyes bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. "Or we could do something even better. We could send false signals. We might be able to make them retreat without firing a shot." She turned back to her work, already planning how to synthesize the Varaxian chemical signals. Garcia watched her, with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You should get some rest first," he suggested. Kennedy shook her head. "Not yet. This could change everything, Rick. If we can speak their language, their real language, maybe we can do more than just fight them. Maybe we can understand them." As Kennedy returned to her microscope, Garcia sent a message to Admiral Donovan about their new discovery. The war against the Varaxians was about to enter a new phase, one that might end the conflict in ways no one had imagined. News of Dr. Kennedy's discovery spread quickly through the Confederation fleet. The ability to synthesize Varaxian chemical signals was a breakthrough that could change the course of the war. But it also raised difficult questions. Colonel William Bennett stood before the Joint Human Confederation War Council, his posture rigid and confident. His presentation showed detailed plans for using the synthesized signals as weapons against the Varaxians. "We can deploy these compounds ahead of Varaxian fleets," Bennett explained. "Their ships will receive false distress signals that will disrupt their formations and confuse their attack patterns." The room was divided. Human military leaders nodded in agreement, while many Confederation representatives looked troubled. "This is chemical warfare," said Council Elder Tralvec, his voice translated into a deep, resonant tone. "The Confederation banned such methods 10,000 years ago, after the Scourge Wars nearly destroyed our ancestor species." Bennett's expression hardened. "With respect, Elder, we're not talking about destroying their bodies. We're talking about disrupting their ability to coordinate their attacks. It could end this war without another shot fired." "The Colonel has a point," Admiral Donovan said. "This is communication disruption, not a biological weapon. We use electronic warfare all the time to jam enemy communications." "It is not the same," insisted another council member. "You are manipulating their biological processes. There are lines that should not be crossed even in war." The debate grew heated. Humans saw a practical solution to end the fighting quickly. The Confederation saw a dangerous ethical line being approached. Olivia Clark, the human diplomatic representative, had been quiet during most of the meeting. As a former professor of interspecies ethics before the war, she had been specifically requested to attend this council. Now all eyes turned to her as she stood. "I understand both perspectives," she said calmly. "The human desire to end the conflict quickly, and the Confederation's concern about methods. But I think we're missing something important here." She walked to the central display and brought up footage of Varaxian attacks on civilian worlds. The Varaxians have shown no interest in negotiation. They've systematically destroyed any world that surrendered without a fight. 23 billion lives have been lost already. Her voice remained steady, but her eyes showed her emotion. Sometimes the most ethical choice is the one that ends the killing most quickly. Elder Tralvec sighed, a sound like distant wind. "Your points are valid, Representative Clark. But if we abandon our principles to win this war, what have we become?" Though meeting ended without resolution, the council would need more time to consider such a significant decision. Later that day, Dr. Ben Howard, a human ethicist who had been working with Confederation scientists, approached Kennedy in her lab. "I heard about the council meeting," Howard said. "Bennett wants to weaponize your discovery immediately." Kennedy looked up from her work, rubbing her tired eyes. "I know. I'm not sure how I feel about it. This research was supposed to help us understand the Varaxians, not just find new ways to fight them." Howard nodded. "I've been working with some Confederation ethicists. We might have a compromise solution." Howard's idea was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of using the synthesized signals as weapons, they could be used as a containment strategy. By creating perimeters that broadcast signals that Varaxians would instinctively avoid, they could protect civilian worlds without directly harming the enemy. When Kennedy and Howard presented this alternative to the council, the reception was much warmer. "A shield rather than a sword," Elder Tralvec said approvingly. "This approach honors our principles while still protecting our people." Colonel Bennett was clearly disappointed but recognized that this was better than no use of the signals at all. "We can establish these perimeters around our core worlds immediately, but I still believe we're missing an opportunity to end this war quickly." The compromise was approved. Within weeks, the first chemical barriers were established around key Confederation systems. The effect was immediate and surprising. Varaxian forces began to retreat from protected systems, consolidating their forces in unclaimed space. "They're pulling back faster than we expected," Garcia told Kennedy as they reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "Almost like they recognize something has changed." Kennedy frowned at the data. It's odd. The signals we're using should just make them uncomfortable, not trigger a full retreat. It's almost like... Like what? Garcia prompted when she fell silent. Like they're regrouping, adapting. Kennedy pulled up more data. We need to be careful. We don't fully understand what these signals mean to them. We're using their language without knowing all the words. Her warning proved prescient. 3 days later, the Varaxians launched a massive attack on the border world of New Horizon. But this time, they seemed unaffected by the chemical barriers. They've adapted somehow, Donovan said during the emergency meeting that followed. They're either blocking the signals or they've changed how they respond to them. Kennedy had been working non-stop since the attack began. It's more than that, she said. The attacks are different now, more coordinated, more deliberate. Before anyone could respond, an urgent message came through from the border outpost nearest to Varaxian territory. Admiral, we're picking up an unusual transmission, the communications officer reported. It's coming from a Varaxian vessel, but it's using our communication protocols. The room fell silent. Put it through, Donovan ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing a Varaxian for the first time in direct communication. The alien was tall, with grayish-purple skin covered in ridges. Its 4 eyes blinked independently, and its mouth was lined with small, sharp teeth. We wish to speak, the Varaxian said in heavily accented but understandable Common, the trade language of the Confederation. You have learned our true speech. Now we learn yours. Donovan looked at Kennedy, whose face showed shock and excitement. They think our chemical signals were an attempt to communicate, Kennedy whispered. Not an attack or a barrier. This is Admiral Patricia Donovan of the Human Confederation Alliance, Donovan said carefully. We are willing to speak with you. The Varaxian made a gesture with its clawed hand. I am called Hunter above all. I will meet with you. Only you. Only humans. Why only humans? Donovan asked. Humans fight differently. Humans think differently. The Varaxian's eyes fixed on Kennedy, somehow knowing she was responsible for the chemical signals. Humans understand the hunt. We will speak to humans. After the transmission ended, the council erupted in debate. This was unprecedented. The Varaxians had never attempted communication before. It could be a trap, Bennett warned. Or it could be our first real chance for peace, Clark countered. In the end, it was decided that a small team would meet with Hunter above all at a neutral location. Captain Samantha Rogers, known for her diplomatic skills, would lead the mission. Kennedy would go to continue studying Varaxian communication. Garcia insisted on joining them for security. As they prepared to depart, Kennedy felt both excitement and fear. They had sought to understand the enemy to defeat them better. Instead, they had accidentally opened a door to something no one expected: the possibility of communication, understanding, and perhaps even peace. The meeting location was a small abandoned mining station in neutral territory. Captain Samantha Rogers stood at the viewport, watching as the Varaxian shuttle approached. Her red hair was pulled back tightly, and though her face remained calm, her hands clasped behind her back betrayed her tension. They're docking now, Dr. Kennedy said, checking the station's sensors. Just one ship, as agreed. Lieutenant Garcia checked his weapon one last time before holstering it. I still don't like this. What if it's a trap? Then we'll deal with it, Rogers said simply. But something tells me it isn't. They've had plenty of chances to attack us directly. The airlock hissed open, and Hunter above all stepped into the station. In person, the Varaxian was even more imposing than on the view screen, nearly 7 feet tall with powerful limbs and those 4 unsettling eyes that moved independently. 2 smaller Varaxians flanked him, clearly guards. You are the human leaders? Hunter above all asked, his voice deep and rumbling even through the translator. Rogers stepped forward. I am Captain Samantha Rogers of Earth. This is Dr. Laura Kennedy, who discovered how to synthesize your communication signals, and Lieutenant Richard Garcia, our security officer. The Varaxian studied them intensely, his nostrils flaring as He seemed to take in their scent. You smell of fear, but you stand firm. Good hunters must control fear. We're not here to hunt, Rogers said carefully. We're here to talk. Hunter above all made a sound that might have been a laugh. All life hunts, Captain. For food, for safety, for knowledge. We have been watching how humans hunt in this war. You are different from the others. Kennedy couldn't contain her scientific curiosity. Why did you attack the Confederation in the first place? What do you want? The Varaxian's expression changed subtly. Want? We wanted to survive. The others would not understand. But perhaps humans will. What followed was a revelation that changed everything they thought they knew about the war. Hunter above all explained that the Varaxians weren't conquerors by choice. They were refugees, fleeing an even greater threat from beyond the galaxy. We call it the Devourer, he said, and even the translation couldn't hide the dread in his voice. It consumes all in its path. Planets, stars, life. Our homeworld was the first to fall. We have been running for generations. Why not just explain this to the Confederation? Rogers asked. Why attack them? We tried in our way, Hunter above all said. We sent warnings, showed evidence of the Devourer. But your Confederation saw only strange aliens with powerful weapons. They prepared for war, so we struck first. It is the way of survival. Your way of communication is very different from ours, Kennedy pointed out. The chemical signals you use naturally. We had to work hard to understand them. Hunter above all nodded. This is why we noticed when you began using our true speech. No species has done this before. It made us curious. Garcia, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. If what you're saying is true, this Devourer is coming here next? How long do we have? 10 of your years, perhaps less, the Varaxian said grimly. We hope to take enough territory and resources to prepare defenses. We did not expect such resistance. The implications were staggering. The war they had been fighting was just the prelude to a much greater threat. Rogers exchanged glances with Kennedy and Garcia, seeing the same realization in their eyes. We need to bring this information to both our leaders, Rogers said finally. The Confederation and humanity need to hear this directly from you. Hunter above all hesitated, then nodded. I will speak to them, but only if humans translate our words. Your kind understands both worlds. When they returned to Confederation space with Hunter above all aboard their ship, the reaction was one of shock and disbelief. An emergency session of the full Confederation Council was called, with human representatives present. The evidence Hunter above all provided was compelling. Records of destroyed star systems, scientific data on the Devourer, and the history of the Varaxian exodus. Kennedy and her team verified as much as they could, and found no reason to doubt his claims. The diplomatic efforts that followed were unprecedented. Human negotiators lacking the historical baggage of the Confederation species served as intermediaries. Where Confederation diplomats saw only the atrocities of the recent war, humans recognized something familiar in the Varaxian plight, the extreme measures taken by a species fighting for survival. Daniel Wright, a veteran of Earth's last global conflict, led the team that drafted the Galactic Concordat. The agreement transformed the binary conflict into a three-way alliance against the greater threat of the Devourer. We turn enemies into allies, Wright explained during the signing ceremony. It's something humans have done throughout our history. Sometimes the greatest battles must be fought side by side. The transition wasn't smooth. After years of war, trust came slowly, but the humans continued to bridge the gap between the two alien groups, finding common ground and shared purpose. 6 months after the Concordat was signed, preparations for the coming battle against the Devourer were well underway. Varaxian hunting tactics were being combined with Confederation technology and human adaptability to create defenses unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. On the observation deck of the newly commissioned Joint Command ship, Unity, Ambassador Zivnara found Kennedy staring out at the stars. You seem troubled, Doctor, Zivnara said. Kennedy smiled faintly. Not troubled, just reflecting. A year ago, we were strangers to the galaxy. Now we're helping prepare for a threat most of us can barely comprehend. Your species has a unique gift, Zivnara observed. You understand both the Confederation's desire for order and peace, and the Varaxians' instinct for survival at any cost. You bridge worlds that might never have found common ground. We've had plenty of practice, Kennedy admitted. Human history is full of conflicts and alliances, betrayals and reconciliations. I guess we've learned a few things along the way. Across the deck, Hunter above all approached, now wearing the insignia of the Joint Defense Force. The Varaxian had become an important liaison between his people and the Alliance. The new sensor grid is operational, he reported. It will give us early warning when the Devourer approaches. Zivnara inclined his head in acknowledgement. Perhaps now we have a chance to face this threat together. Hunter above all looked at Kennedy. The humans know darkness but choose light. They understand fear but act with courage. When the Devourer comes, I wish to fight beside them. Kennedy was surprised by the sentiment from the normally stoic Varaxian. We'll all fight together, she said. That's the point of all this. Later, as the massive Allied fleet conducted joint exercises in the space near what had once been the front lines of their war, Admiral Donovan and Captain Rogers watched from the bridge of the Unity. Look at that, Donovan said, gesturing to the view screen where Confederation, Varaxian, and human vessels maneuvered in perfect coordination. A year ago, they were trying to destroy each other. Now they're preparing to save the galaxy together. Rogers nodded. It's what we do best. Isn't it? Adapt, overcome, bring people together when it matters most. Is that what we did? Donovan asked. Turned the tide of war into a tide of cooperation? I think so, Rogers said. We didn't just change the outcome of the war. We changed what everyone thought was possible. As the Unity moved forward to join the exercise, the combined fleet formed a new formation, one that incorporated human unpredictability, Confederation precision, and Varaxian hunting patterns into something greater than any could achieve alone. The stars watched silently as the former enemies prepared together for the greater challenge ahead. The tide had turned, not just in a war, but in the very future of the galaxy.